Hi everyone, thanks for joining this session. I'm Kelly, and thanks Jason for the introduction. And I think there is a poll that's coming out, so if you can just kindly fill up the poll, I would have a better sense of who is in the audience today, so I can focus a little bit more about what you're more concerned about, or which level are you at this current moment. So I'm going to be speaking about NFTs, digital assets, and gaming, focusing a lot more on the GameFi area, which is about game and DeFi, and really talk about it at a high level, and then giving some opportunities. But before I even start, I think the most important thing here is the disclaimer, right? I think as Harish mentioned, this is only for informational purposes. It is not investment advice. And I point you to the bottom here. Cryptocurrencies, be it digital assets, tokens, coins, NFTs, are highly risky. You have to be prepared to, and you might lose all of the value in investments. So do not, invest unless you are ready to lose everything. Okay, with that disclaimer out of the way, what is the agendas that we have today? There'll be 5 parts of my speech. Who we are as a fund, what is GameFi, why NFTs in games, because a lot of people have been asking, why do you need this in games? The market opportunities that I see, and what you need to take note of. Okay. And so who are we, right? We are a global blockchain fund here based in Singapore under the MAS VCFM license, Venture Capital Fund Manager license, with over 100 million capital to deploy. We only invest in serial entrepreneurs, and we focus on later stage companies. And our portfolio now has 2 unicorns, one where it already went public and one more going public now, right? And we've invested so far, I think we've announced 14 deals so far, 14, and we continue to invest in the next few disruptive blockchain companies out there. So some of our portfolios include Animoca, which just recently appeared on Forbes. You can go Google it and you can go read about it. Yak, who is based in Hong Kong, is the chairman there. And he has done a lot in the last few years to transform the whole Web3 industry, not only in the game space, but every part of blockchain itself. And then we have Sandbox, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, where SoftBank just came in recently in the last couple of months to invest. And this is probably SoftBank's first crypto or tokenized investment. So as a fund, we only invest in equity. We do not invest in crypto or tokens directly. So what is GameFi? GameFi is about games. Some of you might recognize this. It's what we call Axie Infinity. It's almost like a Tamagotchi plus a bit of games that are very popular nowadays, where it's basically a card game with some animation. But the more important question is, what is DeFi? And DeFi is about decentralized finance. It's a field where token-based transactions are used to either lend or borrow on blockchain. Okay, think about it like a decentralized way of borrowing and lending, assets. The other thing about DeFi is that tokens rewards are granted to performance based on whether you win a battle, based on whether you mine a resource, or whether you did something within the game that the game developers want you to do. And sometimes we call this play to earn or P2E. Okay, so users can earn money passively by letting others use or mine their virtual land, their assets, or even the digital characters and items. Okay, that's one example. And the other thing is also what we call staking, where you can earn a yield, so think of it like interest, while putting it in a liquidity pool. So think about it like a depositing money in a bank, so the bank can then loan money out to others, right? Whether to corporates or individuals. So all these are run by the blockchain. So there's no centralized organization. It's all trusted by code, right? Or what we call the smart contract, right? So that's what we, at a high level, call what we call DeFi. So GameFi is essentially the game plus DeFi elements put together. And there are, opportunities, because this is very, very new, where people especially in growing economies like Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, they are playing these games to either put food on the table because COVID has obviously disrupted their livelihood, or essentially supplement some of their wages. So when we look at GameFi itself, and tech companies, we love to look at a lot of these layers, right? Layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. But more importantly, when you say GameFi, you don't only mean one layer, you mean multiple layers, right? So layer 1 is basically where you develop the games itself, right? This is what we call the development kits. the blockchains itself. So everyone, I think, would know about Ethereum, and maybe there are others that we might not know about straight away. And then there are launch pads. So companies where actually they launch these games out. So Engine Starter is also one example of a portfolio of ours where you basically can launch new games through them. So they basically help you raise funds, help you do the marketing, help you build the community around the games. And then there are what we call the player experiences layer, where these are guilds. So this is where companies, organizations come together. They basically build a collection of gamers coming together to play your game, to test your game, to go out there, right? So there are collection and communities of these games. And of course, layer 5 is the games itself. Okay, so Axie Infinity and all these others. So we talk about game 5, we need to be very specific which layer we're speaking about when you want to look at this or you want to invest. Axie Infinity is one example of a game which dominated or is dominating now the play to earn, even though now they are experiencing some downtrends, you can see. But the important thing is this, they've done $4.14 billion of transactions so far. Okay, that's $4.14 billion. And at the peak, when they were the most popular, they were doing 40 million revenues a day. Sorry about that. So that's quite a lot of money, obviously, per day. And they are still dominating the whole GameFi space now. And in terms of Axie Infinity, and of course this applies to not just Axie Infinity, but a lot of other play-to-earn games. What is the structure like? The structure is as follows. The guilds, who is the organization, think about them like associations, right? They bulk buy the NFTs for these games itself. In this case, Axie Infinity. So they do get discounts, they do get different kinds of perks. They agree on a revenue share between the guild manager and scholar. So a manager basically manages many scholars. A scholar is a person that plays the game. In exchange, they basically give these scholars the items, because these items can range from hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars, right? And as the scholars are playing, they do a rev share. And these rev shares can then be put back into the guild and to the managers, right? So as I mentioned to you just now, I think this structure is something very interesting because this creates a lot of unbanked people to get bank accounts, in this case, wallets, right? And this has created a whole industry by itself in the play-to-earn industry. So this is only one example under the Axie Infinity game. This structure is now being replicated to all the other games out there on the play-to-earn basis. Okay, so guilds, managers, and scholars. In this case, these are not the scholars that we know in Singapore. Right? These are the scholars that are playing the games and earning money and putting food on the table. So why is Axie Infinity so disruptive? I think the first thing is that previously, if you look on the top left-hand side here, these were some of the projections that they did previously about July revenues all the way to December 2021. And they were projecting about 100 over million revenues, monthly revenues. But in reality, they over exceeded the revenues. You can see here, right? In 1 month, at the highest month, they actually did $800 million worth of sales. Okay. Now, of course, there is a crypto correction, so you'll see that actually these revenues are dropping. But overall, they've done extremely well, right? Over the expectations. And this has actually sparked off a lot of gaming companies, right? The traditional gaming studios, game companies that are looking into this and saying, hey, can we change our model, right? Because today, a lot of the model is about pay and win, right? You have to go in there, you download the game for free, you buy items, and then you win. But this model is now changing to the play to earn model also. In terms of gamers, right? In terms of market opportunities, there are about 2.7 billion gamers. And you can see that every year there is a steady increase on the number of gamers going forward. And Asia Pacific itself already represents more than double the revenue generated in North America. So this is really the place for growth in terms of gaming. And in terms of the market itself, the games market is now larger than the music and the film industry combined. And this was in 2019. So now in 2022, this is even more true, right? Because more and more people are gaming, they're playing, and they're paying, for these games. This is really a birth of a new asset class because in 2019 itself, it was about $60 billion. Now by 2022, this year, it's more than 100 billion. Some estimates actually now is bigger than 100 billion. It's about 120 billion this year itself. So why NFTs in games, right? A lot of people ask, and a lot of people have pushed back. So I borrowed a little bit of slides from Animoca Brands, who is also one of our portfolio, about how they explain this. First is about true digital ownership. The problem with games today is that they are what we call a rental economy. If a game shuts down, you lose everything in the game. Imagine if you go and buy a shirt, right, from G2000, let's say, for example, and G2000 shuts down. Would you lose your shirt? You probably should not lose your shirt, right? So the same for games today. You must have items that you can take from the game and move it around if needed, or bring it to another metaverse or bring it to another game. That's what we call true digital ownership. And NFTs enable that today. It must be secure and immutable, so nobody can change it. The game developers cannot decide that, oh, I will just change it today because I feel like it. So it should not be able to allow for that. And they must be able to do trading freely anywhere in the world. It should not be confined to the game developers that say, you can only trade this, you cannot trade that, right? There are some cases where the game developers actually ban the users from trading. And of course, it must be cross, application interoperable, right? So there is actually a lot of value for something that you can trade anywhere. So we look at it like this, right? Prosperity is really about having an open economy, like having a free trade. You cannot have towns like this, right, where resources do not flow among each other. And this is what is happening today in games. You cannot take let's say a sword, the digital sword, and you cannot move it around, right? There is no ways to do this. But where NFT games and where all this GameFi is going is it makes it easy for us to actually trade all these items around different games itself. And this is very important in order to have this free trade mindset. When we look at the metaverse, there's actually two types if you look at it broadly, right? One is what we call open metaverse and what we call closed metaverse. So on the left, you see the closed metaverse like Fortnite, World of Warcraft, Second Life, Roblox, Minecraft. These are all popular names. And then on the right side, we see the open metaverse, meaning you can take the land that you buy, the items that you have, and you can move it around. It's owned by you. Nobody else can take it away from you, basically. And we looked at, in terms of the trading itself, you can see that the number one place to trade NFTs is OpenSea. But the number one game is really Axie Infinity. And it's only a fraction of this, obviously, because this is just games. These are all sorts of NFTs, big art, music, different things there, right? So we are seeing and tracking these opportunities now, and we want to be able to look at how all these play out. But I would say that in general, the games are growing strong, right? Obviously, the art side, the music side is also growing strong now. And you can see that very clearly that it's been growing. So in the last, I would say 4 months or so, it has grown from 3 billion to about 4 billion in terms of Axie Infinity. And we see games like Sandbox coming up, which are more metaverse games, popping into the top 10. What is this whole land rush about, right? If you can go on there and look at it, one of the examples is Sandbox, where you have Snoop Dogg, the rapper, Ubisoft, the game developer, Gucci, The Walking Dead. These are all brands that people understand from our current world, and they're all coming in because they want to interact with the next generation of users, right? Adidas, all these guys are all coming into the metaverse. They're buying plots of land, and they're using those lands to market themselves or to give their fans experiences. So I want to show you a next video of one of the metaverse that is now going into alpha. You can actually go sign up and find out yourself what is the whole hoo-ha about. And I'll play this video for you to have a look in the next slide after this. So what are some of the top projects out there? So CryptoPunks, Bored Ape, and Doodles, these are all NFT arts out there. The top two more are Sandbox and Decentraland. These are more metaverses. And you can see in the last 7 days, they have humongous volumes going through in terms of people buying and selling their assets, right? So you see, for example, Sandbox has done about 400 million all time so far. And they are only about 2 years in. Okay, so I'll stop there, and you can probably Google it and look at the videos itself. So what are some opportunities that we see out there? You can be an investor, right? Direct or through regulated funds. You can obviously be a play-to-earn player, which obviously sucks a lot of time, but that could work. You could be a manager to manage the scholars out there. So I know of some friends who have started their own scholarship programs. You can be a partner of Web3 companies, go out there, or you can obviously launch your own NFT projects. And I guess we can talk about that more in the Q&A later on. So what do you need to really take note of? This is extremely high risk, as I mentioned to you. So you must be able to afford to lose everything. Which layers are you looking at? This is very, very important because you can't say GameFi. You have to look at which are the layers. Do you want to look at the bottom layer or you want to look at the top layer, which is the games itself? And you must be able to study the community well. So go look at Telegram, Twitter, Discord, and don't just be convinced by the quantity because the quality is the key. And you can, of course, partner with blue chip projects. So you want to make sure that these founders or these drivers reveal themselves. Because in Web3, in the Metaverse, a lot of people like to stay anonymous, which is not good, right? Because you don't know who they are. They probably do not have the reputation, or they basically can run away if you are not careful, right? And we can talk more about this in the Q&A session later. So with that, if you want to connect, just feel free to scan the QR code or type in bit.ly/connectkelly. I'll be glad to help you, navigate this. And I would love to talk to you more during the Q&A session.